right, welcome back to the party, everybody. I'm your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody hit that like and subscribe. You know I would do it for you. And let's party. Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to watch us, even though you missed the live party, guys. That is the best part. So make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you would like to support the channel, head on over to theindianjesus.com for your very own official merch. We do also have a free Discord server. It's absolutely free to join. We're in there 24/7 hanging out. But if you actually wanted to scroll right below the video here and hit that join button, become a member of the channel, you not only get members only live streams here on YouTube, but after every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday live stream, we go, we don't have to worry about the YouTube censors and you're not stuck behind your keyboard, but you're actually on screen with me and everybody else. So let's welcome our esteemed guest, Thomas Sheedy of Atheists For Liberty. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party.
Thanks for having me, man. That was quite the intro there.
Thank you. So for those who don't know, who are you? What do you do? And where can people find you?
Yeah, so thanks for having me again. My name is Thomas Sheedy. I'm the president and founder of Atheists For Liberty. So we're a nationwide nonprofit, 501c3 organization that stands for free speech, free thinking, and freedom for all. That's our tagline. We care about a wide array of issues, from promoting individual liberty to normalizing atheism across the country, safeguarding secularism, defending our way of life, defending Western civilization against hordes of irrationality and dogma. And we've been going at it in an amazing, energized, reactionary way for 5 years now, with state directors across the country and a wide membership with activities online and offline.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Let's shout out. We've also got Gwenifer in the building. Welcome to the Plunge Cast. And we got Cherry. I recognize you. We met when I met Tom here at Dissident Dialogues, where it all began. Shout out to Melted Mind Media and Taylor Wooden. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, Tom, I'm so glad to be able to speak with you. I think just personally, as somebody who exists in this this conservative space, but doesn't, identify as any type of cultural Christian. We were talking the other night about the secular Christian thing. We can get into that. But being an atheist in the conservative space is rather difficult. And I know that you are more on the atheist versus religion side than the left versus right side. So how do you approach that? Even though, it's pretty clear that you lean one way, definitely not towards the wokies.
Yeah, so my main priority is to defend our civilization against irrationality and dogma of all forms. So I've had a diverse career when it comes to that. I started out in this thing called New Atheism, which is a very popular phenomenon in the West, a gathering of non-religious minds around best-selling authors in the wake of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. So we promoted science literacy against creationism. We promoted dissident voices speaking out against jihad and Islamists. We defended our separation between church and state in the United States against theocracy of all kinds. We've hosted content creators and thinkers and activists online and offline through major think tanks. And there was this really awesome movement that was galvanizing the West in the first 2 decades of the 21st century, but it died due to what you would say is woke infiltration. We were one of the first movements to be infiltrated and ultimately divided and destroyed, you could say, due to social justice, which masked religion, by the way, and defended religious dogma in its most extreme forms in the name of diversity. I was in that movement for a very long time. I was an assistant state director of orgs like American Atheists and had an upbringing with a lot of other major atheist institutions in the United States. Because I think it's very important for us to promote this idea that you could be an atheist, a non-religious individual, and be a good person, that you don't have to have faith in order to live a good, moral, and purposeful life, that our civilization, which was really built upon the Enlightenment, people say, oh, it's tied to feudal Christianity. Okay, well, then let's tie this civilization to feudal Islam or anything feudal in nature and see where it goes. No, we were brought upon by ideas that transcended, what kings and queens have thought for millennia. And I want to preserve the greatest nation that has prospered in the history of the planet due to these ideas through acknowledging the non-religious secular reality as to where our nation and our population is headed. Major problems right now require secular solutions based on the data of what we're seeing. You're having over a third now of Gen Z and late millennials identifying as atheist, agnostic, none of the above, not going to church on Sundays. And so we can't really use this narrative of, oh, we're all created in the image of God. Let's all go to church and somehow the wokies are going to be finished. That's not going to work
Not
in
quite.
2024. And so 5 years ago, myself and numerous other former veterans and activists and thinkers from that new atheist movement in the West came together and formed a new 501c3 profit called Atheists For Liberty, which wants to maintain all the greatness that has made America possible through these awesome ideas.
Beautiful. Yeah. And shout out to the I'm getting a little bit of an echo from Do you have headphones by any chance?
Yeah, this is one of those problems. So let me see what I can do here. I'm gonna have a little boomer moment of some technical difficulties, but let me see what I can do this very second.
All right. Well,
okay.
well, while you're figuring that, I just there was there's a huge supporter of this channel. Shout out to Nick Lucchetti. It doesn't seem to be here tonight. He's been away for a few days, but he was the one that actually first brought up Atheists For Liberty to me. And he for a long time. You good? Yes.
Yes. I am trying to see. So speaker, I'm going to try to have it go through this. Okay, try talking.
Test.
Yes. Okay.
Beautiful. There we go. So yes, I was talking the Golden Bear, Nick Lucchetti, who's like, man, you got to check out Atheists For Liberty. They're right up your alley. And I don't know if you remember, there was at Dissident Dialogues, the very end, there was that because we were up in the VIP area, and there was that one high school girl with her mom. And she was just so excited to meet you. I don't know if you remember this, but she's a young girl. And
I remember, yeah.
It was really cool to see, because when I was that age, I still had the same type of mentality. But I mean, other than the new atheism itself, there wasn't really much for a younger person to look up to as like next steps. And so like you could look at Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris back in the day, and be like, oh, I want to be just like that. But like how to get there was seemed rather out of reach. And the Atheists For Liberty seems to be that place where you can go to figure out, okay, now I realize this is the way that I think. How can that be applied to liberty? Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I don't know if that was more of a statement or just a question to me. But
well, yeah, I was just saying, would you agree
totally
that this is a middle ground for become? And let's say somebody doesn't necessarily even want to be like an influencer atheist, but just to find more people like them.
Yeah, we have so many community programs, for instance. So like we do Discord events every single Sunday where members can hang out and talk about a wide variety of topics, things going on in their lives. Sometimes we theme the events. We do X Spaces, so those are growing. We do our streaming series on YouTube, so we stream Tuesdays at 8. Every single week. So I interview famous atheists and other thinkers and other people relevant in whatever we're discussing. And we have 2 other shows on our YouTube channel as well. And we're doing in-person meetups too. So we do events in New York, which also includes people from New Jersey and Connecticut. We just did our DC reception last month where Yasmin Mohammed, a very famous atheist and ex-Muslim, was our guest speaker there. So we had a lot of people from Maryland, DC, and Virginia. We do brunches in Portland, Oregon. We have so many different events happening around the country, and we're going to be doing more national exhibitions and endeavors too, where a lot of people can join in. This whole claim of, oh, well, you're atheists, and so you don't have any way to provide meaning and community to people. That's not true. Atheists have been doing that successfully for many, many years, but some atheists fell short of that because they just embraced a new religion. We're not doing any of that, and we understand that humans likes to hang out with each other. atheistforliberty.org, guys. There's so many ways to get involved, to become a member, to volunteer, and to join the online and in-person hubs that we got.
And speaking to that, you were talking about how it's open to anybody who is, just into, secularism and liberty. How do you? I've realized I kind of went in, just assuming, especially because I was hanging out with you and Cherry. Shout out to Cherry at Dissident Dialogues, and Alex O'Connor was there. Shout out to Alex O'Connor, just name dropping all over the place here. But it seems like the four of us tend to be more or less aligned from what we were talking about, and I kind of internalized that and projected my own political positions, I guess, onto you guys. But just, spending time in the Discord, spending time in the Twitter space that we did last week, it's apparent that, and this is a good thing, but it's apparent that there's a wide range of political beliefs in the organization. How do you manage that?
So I've managed it due to a personal frustration I had with the atheist community. So when the atheist movement, or that old new atheist movement, was super duper popular, there was a culture of bipartisanship. It always leaned liberal, but it leaned like boomer classical liberal.
Right.
So every now and then you would actually get some libertarians and conservatives that would be in these spaces too, because in the wake of 9/11, our main priority was to protect our way of life against people who want to blow us up in the name of their religion. It was very hard to be picky. But eventually political litmus tests were instilled in the movement, and we had some successes. We created this thing called the Congressional Free Thought Caucus. The problem was it was filled with all Democrats. And the problem is if you're trying to promote this idea that you could be a U.S. citizen and live a good life and base policies and decisions off of reason and not religion, that needs to be reflected through 100% of our population, not just 50% of it. So through this frustration and annoyance, and also through, at the time in 2019, 2020, seeing even portions of conservatism and libertarianism get more secular in their branding, get very new atheisty in their branding, owning the feelings-based people with facts, like YouTube atheism from 2012, 2013.
One step away. They're one step away.
Repackaged to be for conservatism or owning the libs or whatever. It's clear that there was a lot of overlap in many ways between this anti-wokeism and atheism. And so we took advantage of that cultural trend. So when Atheists for Liberty actually premiered as an org, we premiered at the Conservative Political Action Conference. And we proceeded to go to things like Freedom Fest, LibertyCon, things that were obviously fairly right-leaning. But Atheists for Liberty's membership is quite diverse. So we have people that are conservatives in the Republican Party, to Libertarian Party members, to old school, classically liberal Democrats, like Bill Maher types, Richard Dawkins types. So we're very diverse in that, because we don't want to have some stupid paper registration litmus test to get involved in the necessary things that we have to do. We understand that in order for our mission to be successful, we can't be picky like the woke people in the last movement.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. But that does also, again, put it's a balance, because there's, this I think is the problem with just the libertarian movement, like the capital L libertarian movement in general, is that they want to be so inclusive that the people who are on the fringes, who technically should be part of the group, kind of ruin it for everybody. You were going back to how AFL started. You're talking about how new atheism was very partisan, and you saw the need for to detach from this litmus test, as you called it. So I mean, I would love to know what the thought process is there, and how you end up being the president of an organization like this.
So I don't like to create new things if we can salvage old institutions, especially institutions that have been around for a very long time. So groups such as American Atheists have existed since the early 60s, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which is the org that used to send letters to government institutions and schools that were violating our Constitution. They've existed since the 1970s. The reason why Atheists for Liberty was created is because a lot of the existing think tanks, a lot of the existing community and activist-related organizations that were around, the wood was so rotted out that we had no choice but to gather policy officials, former employees of these organizations, former board members, and other prominent thinkers in atheism, and create a whole new nationwide nonprofit. And I was 21 at the time when we premiered as an org. Coming out with the paperwork, I was 20. I'm now 26. It's not, I will admit, it's not easy having to rebuild everything from scratch. We were created due to a necessity, due to a white space that was available, but available out of necessity, because there were so many atheists throughout the United States that where their needs were not actually being met, where other people, so-called free thinkers, were trading in one religion simply for another due to their own selfish ambitions. Which was not right, and it's not good for our population, our emerging secular population. So that was the mindset. It was this anger, it was this frustration. It was me as a young college student that was trying to get his career started, but at the same time saw that a young person had no choice but to kind of, jump ahead. And instead of spending years under other organizations and other, maybe other career paths that I could have taken, instead I built this infrastructure when really we shouldn't even exist. We're forced to exist because of the conditions that the last movement placed upon us.
Yeah, well, I got to thank you for all that, because you took the words right out of my mouth of necessity, that the necessity is the mother of invention. I don't really want to do anything, but kind of like Trump, he's like, well, if ain't nobody else gonna do it right, then I'm gonna have to do it. Guys, really quick, if you do me a huge favor and hit that like button, it is quick, it is free, and it helps so very much. Thomas, you mentioned that we're facing problems that need secular solutions. What kind of problems are you talking about? I mean, I definitely see the problem, but
a wide variety of issues. Just to list them off the top of my head, I've recently been doing a lot of work about the rising tide of Islamism that is plaguing Europe, that is plaguing Canada, and even the United States. A lot of people think that the issues of radical Islamic terror are just a European problem or a Syrian problem or a Pakistani problem, but in reality, we have Salman Rushdie, who's one of the most prominent thinkers of our time. He was attacked in upstate New York, not in even Minnesota or Michigan, but in upstate New York, the state that I reside in. You're having people in this country chant for the death of America within our borders. We're seeing online religious extremism pop up in many echelons. So you have the far left that is coddling Islamism in the name of this social justice woke religion. They would prefer to see our streets on fire in order for their belief systems to be coddled and respected. And also on the far right, you are seeing Catholic nationalists or Christian futurists, they like to call themselves, call for the removal of the Constitution in the name of their own feelings being protected too. So religious extremism in all of its forms are popping up in the name of whatever's cool or edgy to say online, which will kill all of our freedoms in the name of their own self-satisfaction, their own selfish self-satisfaction. That's not a good thing at all. And then also there's a lot of debate that's happening within the intellectual spheres of our institutions about this crisis of meaning. Our technology is advancing. The way that we are able to get around and communicate with each other is advancing. The amount of dopamine that we are getting is just so wide. And I understand this as a 20-something-year-old. What's the point of life when everything has been handed to you on a silver spoon? Well, those are important dialogues and discussions that need to be had. When we are able to just automate our lives and be stuck in a room all day if we really want to, get our medicines and our doctor's appointments and our groceries handed to our door, if you really don't try hard enough, you could just be secluded, some people, for their entire lives. And that's a lonely existence. And so these are conversations that some people are having out of scarcity. And a lot of it relates to religion. A lot of it relates to the rise of atheism. In great ways, and some in forms that we just haven't figured out the conclusions to yet. And so I want Atheists for Liberty to be a spearhead in helping to facilitate those discussions, because they're discussions that really need to be had both online and in person.
So somebody, a lot of
examples.
Yeah. No, I mean it's great, but so a lot of the audience here, as I'm sure a lot of people that you talk to are Christian, and so when you bring that up and in the context of problems that need secular solutions, why can't they just say, well, we just need to go when they inevitably say we just need to go back to God, or we need to get God back in schools or something like that? How do you
You know?
respond to that?
Well, let's think about this. And atheists have been rightfully saying that for the following statement for many years, and I'll continue to state it now. Christians are atheists when it comes to Greek mythology. Christians are atheists when it comes to Islam. Christians are atheists when it comes to Hinduism. But somehow, with us saying we're atheists and using the evil A word, somehow then we become the immoral, anti-Western civilization, anti-constitutionalist, anti-wholesome, anti-family life, anti-everything people, which is utterly ridiculous.
Is it though?
Most Christians
Is
who
it
are
though?
westernized have
Sorry,
yes.
but is it though? Because I'm sure. Did you grow up with religion, or were you? Did you never?
It, yeah, I was raised Catholic for 15 years.
Yeah, same. So I was in the Catholic Church. I got confirmed in the Methodist Church, and that stage of militant atheism, where you are first coming away from religion. Not everybody grows up with religion, but specifically people like us who did. There is
Yeah,
a phase that you go through, and I mean, some people go harder than other. I went a lot harder than I'd be willing to admit going back now. But being that atheist that all the Christians think, that the archetype that everybody
yeah,
thinks. So I don't know if it's that unfair, because once we kind of get over it and realize, and like, okay, I can find truth and meaning and whatever else in other places, then we don't necessarily talk about it as much, and don't really need to attack, I put in quotes, religion, unless it's being thrust upon why we can't have our ideas. And while of course I agree with you, and on that side, that we do
mm,
need the secular perspective to be put forward, I'm just wondering how, when somebody thinks that they have a perfect ideology, them hearing that, like, oh well, you're an atheist when or the old was it Hitchens who was saying, like, I just disbelieve in one more. I think that was Ricky Gervais or whoever it was. But that you disbelieve 1,000 gods, I just believe in one more. I think
yeah.
they too easily would be like, well, yeah, because I believe in the right God, and I have the right morals, and I have the right thing. So just follow my thing. It's already in
Well,
a book. It's already here for us.
well, here's the question then. Would we apply the same feelings when it comes to social justice activists? Well, I identify as pig gender. It's my lived experience. Don't attack or disagree with my personal beliefs. When it comes to Black Lives Matter, would we apply the same logic? Oh, there's systemic racism everywhere. Therefore, we are justified to stop people's everyday life, to halt local economies, because that's how I feel. That's the experience of a marginalized individual,
Hmm.
you sick imperialist,
I
right?
think you and
For
I might
some
not.
reason, when it comes to faith,
Hmm.
we for wokeism, we're able to use our critical thinking skills, but somehow when it comes to faith, the old religions, we can't. And I don't think that is I don't think that is a good way to go about thinking that. And not only that, I think it's also disrespectful to plenty of Christians and people of faith who are smart enough and mature enough to be able to take criticism and to be able to accept disagreement. I think Christians, a lot of Christians and a lot of atheists have more in common than they don't. And I think most
Absolutely.
Christians and most atheists are mature enough to understand that we're not going to agree on the formation of the universe and the cosmos, but we can still be able to disagree with each other on fundamental issues while agreeing on plenty of things that make us live in a society that's able to withstand the test of time.
Hmm. And again, just coming from because again, my biggest thing is that, again, obviously I agree with you, and I'm trying to push the same type of message. Is
Yeah.
the problems I run into when people are we just covered, I don't know if you're familiar with Andrew Wilson of The Crucible, who's a Christian populist,
Mhm.
and he just debated Dave Smith. And I covered that last night, and not only did he have nothing to say but divine command, and but
Yeah.
the
My book says so.
yeah, the degree to which not only an individual can get behind that, but how many other people. That's always been the problem that I've seen, is that I don't need to take, I don't have the desire to take religion away from you. I just feel like maybe I personally don't have the answers, but I don't see why we as humanity couldn't do better than what Christianity offers. And I find that as a roadblock every time.
I think it's only a roadblock due to political reasons, right? So
Mhm.
New Atheism and its success, it only started, 2 decades ago. It only started to become really successful a little more than a decade ago. Then wokeism happened, and then we wanted to team up with religious conservatives against wokeism. And a lot of them are funded by mega pastors. A lot of the think tanks are funded by people that really still don't like atheism. So, we started to get involved in this intellectual dark web, right? This agree to disagree kind of free speech culture, where, we got to put our differences aside in order to stop the woke. Well, a lot of us atheists, we put our differences aside,
Right.
but you had, and I would say this is a minority, but a vocal minority of the Christians that we teamed up with, who didn't put their differences aside and vehemently attacked atheism, which I think is just very, very silly, because we are becoming a more secular nation with a more non-religious and atheistic population. It's very, very, very bad marketing, very, very, very bad strategy. And let's pretend I was a Christian. Christians and atheists can understand math. Jews and Muslims can understand math, right? So anybody can go to the Pew Research Center and just see time and time again that people are becoming less and less religious. I could be the biggest religious apologist on the planet, and the math would still not like. I would still not like the math, but the math would still be there. And this is why I said in the beginning of the streams, these problems require secular solutions, whether you like them or not. I understand why some people have their own personal crises of meaning, and I understand why some people feel like they need to come to faith due to the emotional troubles that they might be having. I don't agree with it, but I understand and respect the people that are going through said struggles. And these debates are only going to continue to be had. I understand that some people might feel like certain criticisms of their own ideas might be misconstrued as attacks against attacks against
Mhm.
people as individuals, and I don't
Mhm.
want to come across as that. I think we need to be passionate and we need to be hard hitting when it comes to telling the truth about things, but we can also be diplomatic and respectful and understanding and knowing on how to build coalitions with people who might have slight disagreements with us at the same time. We're not going to win every single mind through these endeavors, but I think most people are going to agree with us. And as the Overton window, as the tide of political correctness makes it correct for us to be in more of these anti-woke spaces, saying the secular things that need to be said, even if
Mhm.
it's not really nice in 2024, maybe it'll be nice in 2028 or 2032. But if Thomas has to look like the bad guy in the
Mhm.
think tank conferences right now, and we have to, do this like Jordan Peterson view of wearing the apostles on the stupid, on our like, because that's the acceptable thing to say right now in the amphitheaters. Fine, I'll look like the bad guy, but we'll look like the good guys 8 years from now, because the math and really
Mhm.
reality is on our side, and I want to save our
Right.
country.
Yeah, and that brings up a shout out to Guantek, something that he said to me during one stream where I was just getting triggered. I was we get passionate here, and it was on something religious. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he just said to me, he's like, dude. Like he's not an atheist, but he's not a Christian. He says he likes magical thinking, and so he's like, dude, I think you're right, but like, just let it happen. Like you don't have to force it to happen today. And that really struck me, because I was like, I know I'm right. I know that Christianity is not the best that humanity can do. But when he's like, just let it happen, then that really put in my mind, similar to what you said, is that, okay, like maybe maybe we're just a little bit ahead of our time, and I feel comfortable saying that, because for so long I was like, am I wrong? Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Yeah,
And nobody's
you're
been
just
able
being
to prove me
politically
wrong.
incorrect. You're just being politically incorrect in 2024.
Yeah,
That's really
well
all it
said.
is. You're saying the stuff that right now is not acceptable, maybe on the right or in these heterodox communities, but it's going to be seen as acceptable later on. I don't mind being the bad guy. Right now, everyone's like, "Oh, we need to go back to church. Oh, crisis of meaning." You know what? Guys, I'm 26. I have crises of meaning all the time. Okay. I'm seeing all the
Quarter
crazy
life
stuff
crisis.
happening. It's part of being human. I get it. But abandoning reason and rationality and the truth of what makes us feel good. We claim to be the thinkers against woke irrationality. Facts don't care about your feelings. Well, that reality is right in front of
That
us.
applies.
We have
Yeah.
to we have to put our money where our mouth is. Everyone knows it.
Agreed. Agreed. So, shout out to Mercy Choke here. Had a great question. Said America and much of Europe are headed in a Christian nationalist direction. Frightening stuff. History warns strongly against it. Are you familiar with Project 2025?
I am. And not only that, I'm familiar with plenty of the actors that are involved in trying to make that. I don't even like to say Christian nationalist because I sound like a CNN commentator, but like I say Catholic nationalist, Christian futurist, but really Christian nationalist is also accurate.
Yeah. Well, Andrew Wilson was
I just don't
using
want to sound like I'm being
populism.
partisan. But I don't want to. Some people. There are a lot of people that partisanly, confuse Christian nationalism with populism. We have populists that are members of AFL. Like, I don't want people to think that we're partisan in that way politically, not to the left, not to the right. It's a danger. And I've been, if you look at, you follow me at Sheedy Tom at SheedyThom on X on Twitter. Literally, half of my tweets now are me talking about how the right is an issue and how the right needs to improve. And by the way, technically, I'm someone on the right.
Yeah.
But I also speak out against wokeness. I speak out about very anti-Islamism. I am truthful about my views all around.
Yeah, I mean, I put up a poll earlier. Should America have an official religion? And even though I don't know exactly how what the split is, but I would say at least half, if not most, of the audience here is somewhat Christian, or at least definitely not an atheist. But we are. I'm going to end that 78% of people said no. So I am very, very happy with that.
That's what I'm saying. Even most Christians understand that.
Yes, absolutely. So Ian Hartman said, just because more people are becoming atheists doesn't mean it's a good thing. To say in a kind way, atheism has major optics problems. I don't need to respond to that.
I agree to a degree. I understand that. So, just because, so do I think that people would be better off without religion? I would say yes. I would say yes. However, that doesn't mean that dogma doesn't exist. That doesn't mean that irrationality will still not be an issue, right? Just because we might solve the issue of where we came from, or where the what started the universe, or getting creationism out of our classrooms or whatever, relating to all that stuff. It doesn't mean that automatically every problem in the world is automatically going to be solved. There are still going to be disagreements among atheists. You have left-wing atheists and you have right-wing atheists. You have atheists who agree with certain policies here and certain policies there. Atheists who have one view on the economy and another view on economy. Atheists who are pro-life, atheists who are pro-choice, right? I just prefer to see the issues debated from reason and not religion. And I think if we were to get over that one stump, we can try to then get over the other stumps in a much easier way. But I'm not acting in this fantasy world of, everything in the world is due, all the problems in the world are due to religion. And therefore, if we just eliminated religion, somehow my nice magical reality of science is somehow going to appear before my very eyes. No way whatsoever. But I do think that most atheists are good, normal, rational people. I think most atheists, like statistically, they lean like center right. So they're like your Bill Maher Democrat. And on the right in the United States, atheism is also rising too. And I also understand from the internet problem of the optics issue. Okay, I don't like this idea of the fedora tipping 500-pound weirdo who doesn't know how to wear a suit, who doesn't have, isn't able to operate in a social way with other people, right? Debate me, bro. I'm going to win in the comments section and never leave my room kind of look. I think most atheists don't have that look. And I'm a passionate atheist, but I'm able to look like a normal person and act like a normal person.
There you go. The Reddit mod atheist.
Do I think that I actually like the idea of the Reddit mod atheists, and that I think atheists need to be passionate in their views. I actually think some atheists have gotten too soft over recent years, but you can act in a normal way when talking about it.
Yeah, that's I mean,
that's how I think we need to change our look.
There you go. So it seems like you agree with Ian here in saying that even so he said when I say optics problem, an example of that would be the fact that atheists for the most part are represented from a so-called leftist position, and even the
we call it a leftist position, and that's the problem. We call it a leftist position when it isn't a leftist position. It's not a right conservative position. It is a new atheist or secular
Being
position.
an atheist, you mean?
People automatically attributed it to left wing,
Right.
left wing, left wing, and that's the problem. It should be neutral.
Right. And
You know,
and that
and that's yeah.
that's the goal that people like us are here to try to bring among people. And you know, I think the yeah, so just, you know, acting in that way. I got you. But that is
Yeah, I
like,
see what you mean. Yeah.
and Ian, I'm only picking you out because you're the one who said it, but this applies to a lot of people, right, left, center of faith, that you think atheist and you think left, just as Tom said, that there is a connection to the two, and there might be a correlation. But I think part of you know, our work, my work, and Tom's work, not to, you know, he's but, you know, I'm just saying we in the same area, is to again, as you say, normalize atheism, normalize that it's not a political thing, it's a philosophical, spiritual thing, and it's not about it's not about, you know, pointing out what I don't like about what you think. It's about providing an opportunity for you to understand that I can come to similar, if not exactly the same conclusions, just based on a different avenue. Again, coming from the political side, I always say, like, if this is the right position, like the position we all agree, and I got here from over here, and you got here from over here, like, why are we fighting about how we got here if we both agree that this is the right position?
Exactly.
And it's frustrating, and people will definitely, well, because you're an atheist and you can't this, da, 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 da. And I guess that just speaks to, you know, being the bad guy until time catches up with us.
Good luck losing that.
So, Multiply Media said, the passion of a Reddit mod mixed with the speaking of a pastor. There you go. There you go.
I like it. I actually like that.
This is a good one.
Internal. I like telling people. I'll tell people that internally. Yes, everybody, be like a Reddit mod.
Yeah, and so
secular does not mean.
Yeah, so Mercy's saying secular does not mean non-political, though. Exactly, not mutually exclusive.
Bingo.
Many atheists are civic-minded and partisan as fuck. Exactly. This is
That's true.
Thomas is doing the work. If people are seeing this, not to say that you needed him to tell you that,
I've
but
met
you know,
atheist Democrats. I've met atheist Republicans.
Yep, and
atheism is simply the negation of God's existence, the existence of a god or gods. You know, it doesn't really say much else about you. We can make some policy inferences. You know, do you want religion instilled in your life and in your government and society that you live in? Most atheists would likely lean to no, because they don't believe in religion. They're not religious people. So, but apart from that, atheism is simply you know, a non-given. So, you know, there are atheists that have a wide variety of philosophical views, of political views, and more, and that's what we're trying to tell people.
Yeah, and again, Ian, I agree that most people do think, you know, these negative words. But what we're here saying is that no, that is your representative heuristic, and that's okay if you think that. You don't know any better. You don't know any better, but we will show you. We will show you. So the you know, the way that I try to approach this, you know, from more of a political perspective, I think that the reason that people are there is an uptick in religiosity is that lack of meaning, and because people have a lack of meaning when they leave religion, they just assume like the dichotomy of religion and meaning, or no religion and no meaning. And so what kind of messaging can we use to help people realize, like, the Bible is not the only place where there's morality and philosophy and spirituality and these kinds of things?
So I can answer this question in a variety of ways. So I actually don't think that this uptick in the culture wars and some of the media outlets that we watch and the podcasts that we watch about that you know, this rising tide of religion is due to the lack of meaning. I actually think that people are giving credit to that when credit should not be given to that. So I think a lot of it is actually just due to political correctness in the spheres of influence and the think tanks and the YouTube channels that we are surrounding ourselves with. So, you know, for a lot of people that have been getting so sick of wokeness, you will automatically go to outlets that are filled with people that are seen as more conservative. And because the Overton window has not shifted in more secular ways on that, because the woke people who took over the movement don't want to do that, that's why Atheists for Liberty had to be created, right? You're automatically going to be surrounded by people that are way more sane in 90% of what you believe in compared to the blue-haired person over here. And therefore, you're automatically going to be surrounded by people that automatically think, oh, well, you know what? These guys are religious and they're way, way nicer to me than blue-haired crazy who happen to take over the atheist movement. Therefore, atheism must be wrong. I'm not saying that there are some people that have been going in that direction because of the lack of meaning, but I actually don't think that that's a majority. I think simply politically, the message has been just shoved in our throats that it's secularism's fault, it's atheism's fault, it's secularism's fault, it's atheism's fault. Meanwhile, you look at half of the European Parliament, which is conservative or right-leaning, they're atheistic, they're secular. They laugh at this idea that in order to be against wokeism or whatever you guys want to call it, degeneracy, disorder, chaos, that you need to have some kind of biblical view. It is a very American media and American politics concept that is just simply not the case. That's simply not true. And then let's talk about the Bible. Most Christians and most people in general have just not even read the Bible. Most stories in the Bible are filled with death, destruction, chaos, disorder, things that any normal person in the West would be totally against. I see BLM, in that comment here. It's literally like the Portland, Seattle, and Annapolis BLM riots. That's basically the stories of the Bible and the wars and the battles that are displayed in there would be in some of the ancient cities of the old world. Right. So I don't buy that at all. I think simply, before the age of the Enlightenment, Christianity was very effective in being spread first through the Roman road system and then just through the kingdoms and monarchies that existed in feudal times. When Enlightenment ideals were starting to be propped up, this idea of atheism wasn't really so solidified yet. So a lot of concepts were molded into deism and secular Enlightenment thought. And later on, atheism just started to become more of an acceptable idea starting in the mid-20th century and now especially going into the early 21st. It's really politics. It's the messaging. It's what's acceptable to say. So when I'm at CPAC or when I'm at, a great story. I was at Freedom Fest last year. Myself and my staff, we didn't have a hotel suite, so we were actually drinking some excess alcohol we had in a hotel lobby, hanging out with people. And there were a lot of people and vendors that were chilling with us as we were having this so-called casual party. There was a producer of a very, 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 very popular show online that a lot of your audience, I bet, watches. I was trying to get onto this show because it would have been very, very good to get on it. And this guy was an atheist. The show, this one woman who has this show on a very, very popular conservative network, she's an atheist. And I'm like, great, like we totally align. We can advance our mission. We can get more of our members in our base to watch your show. And he said, yeah, like we're totally like secretly in with you, Thomas, on all of this. We're totally on board. But we think the baby boomers and some of the base that watches it would not like it. So we just purposely are not going to put it on, even though they know that we're right.
Yeah.
They know that we're right. So this is, I'll give one more example. You and I, we met, got your awesome Indian Jesus.
There you go.
At Dissident Dialogues. We met at Dissident Dialogues, which was a really, really fun free speech conference in Brooklyn. And the last debate that was had at that event was a debate between Richard Dawkins and Ayaan Hirsi Ali on her so-called conversion to Christianity.
And they did, sorry to interrupt you, but they did just put that out. Richard Dawkins did just put that out on his channel today. Sorry.
And so I think Richard Dawkins knocked it out of the park. I think he said way more good things than Ayaan has said with respect to Ayaan. I actually am part of the Clarity Coalition with Ayaan. I like her a lot. I think she was dead wrong on nearly everything that she was saying up on that stage. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. She was wrong. Richard was right. But despite the fact that most people know that what Richard Dawkins was objectively right in what he was saying, the majority of the audience clapped for Ayaan. Because when you're part of a community that is against anything that might be attributed to anything that it could be possibly associated with woke, with what these institutions saying, woke equals secular, woke equals atheist. It's so not true. You are going to be in that environment so much, especially amongst like conservative media people, think tank people, certain donors that want certain things to be said. You're going to see views that are just not what even the majority of the population are clinging to be clapped for. So this idea of this marketing, it exists not only in the progressive space, it exists in the conservative space as well. But hats off to Winston Marshall and the team of Dissident Dialogues. And
Yes.
I'm working actually with some of the people who put it on. They did a phenomenal event. We had so many awesome people that were there. I'm so glad that plenty of Atheists for Liberty people that were there. But this is just, people don't like to say this because, especially in the industry that I'm in, you're beholden to donors. You're beholden to certain people. You don't want to piss off your audience. You don't want to come across as being demeaning. So better to just, especially if you're an atheist, but you're also involved in anti-woke activism or like atheism, but maybe like you're involved in the gender debate or criticizing DEI, right? You don't want to lose the anti-DEI audience or the anti-gender crazy audience or something like that. So you're going to, even if you disagree with it, even though you have like Jordan Peterson, who's right next to you saying atheism caused this problem, atheism caused that problem, you're going to shut up. Because you need to keep the conversation rolling and all the other good things you're doing. And that's the problem. We became subject to that issue, and now all of a sudden atheism is to blame. No, we just stopped talking about atheism because we didn't want to be with the blue-haired people who were racist, even though we were not.
Yeah, and I think that that leads to I assume you watched the Jordan Peterson and Alex O'Connor conversation. I mean, it really came, the whole thing really came down to, were the Israelites really in the desert in Exodus? Well, what do you mean, really? What do you mean?
What do you mean that?
And
let's be real. Jordan Peterson is a Western man of science. He has operated in a secular fashion at Harvard. He has been around respected individuals similarly in his field, like Steven Pinker, like Richard Dawkins, and all this other stuff. I'm not saying that he's a fan of atheism. I'm not saying he is on board with new atheism. I'm not saying that at all. But he is, like, if Nick Fuentes and his truly Catholic Bible-believing followers ever took power in the United States, Jordan Peterson would be put in the same so-called degenerate, so-called evil, secular, materialist scientist category as Richard Dawkins and Steven Pinker.
Just from that clip, right? Because he won't say, yes, it happened. Yes, I believe. Yes.
Because he knows it's not true.
Right.
And because he knows it's not real. But he doesn't want to say it.
And I do genuinely believe that he, like the lectures that he was doing before, he was on Rogan with the C whatever bill in Canada. I do genuinely believe he sees value in the mythology of the Bible, but he doesn't do a very good job of putting out his I would call it a bias, that he doesn't actually believe the stuff. And then that is what leads to more people like Ayan and Russell Brand and Nala Ray, the OF girl, and all this stuff. And so that is why
really non-religious.
Yeah. And so that is why I came up with this this idea of the secular Christian. And so we only got to talk about it for a quick moment, but the idea that if I'm in a conversation with somebody who happens to be a Christian and I'm making good points, and there's an audience, and the other person, my interlocutor, can use the fact that I'm an atheist to shut down my entire argument to the audience, I think that is a good rhetorical tool to just shut down their rhetorical tool and be like, no, actually, I am a Christian. I'm just a secular Christian. And then bring it back to the actual point of the conversation. It was never to say, well, we're going to, get in nice with the Christians, or we're going to downplay this. But it also, when I'm thinking of this is, look, every time somebody like Ayan becomes a Christian, or Dawkins says culturally Christian, or an OF girl, gets on the Daily Wire because she's a Christian, it's watering it down further and further and further and further. And go ahead. And it was saying before about my boy Guamtech, just saying like, yo, just let wait it out. I'm like, well, what if instead of waiting it out, what if I help water it down when it's necessary? And again, in those, but not that I'm going around telling people that I am a secular Christian, but that, I follow the values that you would call, you being the Christian, you would call Christian values. The only difference is the belief in the truth claims. And I mean, I think if you can get past that hurdle and show people that when we actually talk about the issue, whatever it is, that whether you're an atheist or you believe in God or this God or that God, really doesn't change the substance of the conversation. You're still scrunching your face up. You don't like it at all, do you?
Yeah, I think this is maybe the only thing we disagree on, and here's why. I really do think that strength in numbers and actions meaning more than words will really make a difference. So, for instance, let's look at a lot of the people that are on like Atheists for Liberty's advisory board, or we could talk about Richard Dawkins, or really anybody. So Colin Wright, I'll use him as a wonderful example because you and I were in an X space with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very famous evolutionary biologist now who's been speaking out against gender ideology, very anti-woke. He does videos with like PragerU, and he's been on Fox, and he goes on all these shows. And he's developed a very conservative religious following too because of it. He doesn't say, though, that he is a Christian. He doesn't say that he is a secular Christian. He doesn't say if he's a Christian atheist. He doesn't say he believes in Christian values. He says he's an atheist, and not only that, he actually is. He puts his advisory board at Atheist Liberty in his bio. So what I like about this is that he's able to be a great person in his field that's able to get sane people of so many different religious persuasions on his side due to his profession, due to his work. Oh my God, that Colin Wright guy that I followed, honey, he's an atheist? Oh, well, I guess if Colin Wright is doing so many great things to save Western civilization and objective reality, not all atheists are bad people. When we premiere at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, for instance, and we're able to show, hey, we care about Western civilization, free speech, and all this stuff, but we are not going to lie to you and say that we believe in something that we clearly don't, but we respect you, that we care about these cultural issues here. Oh, and we also happen to be atheists. Mm-hmm. Wow, I guess I was wrong about you guys. Very cool. Let me take a brochure. And the problem is that there are some of us that just have not understood that because of this idea that, well, if I say I'm an atheist, will I lose friends? Will I lose this gig or this deal or this PragerU video or this contract that I need to have for my career or my field or to get on this show on YouTube? The answer in 99% of cases is going to be a no. And the more and more of us that use the term atheist, that 90% of Americans, I would say over 90% of Americans now understand the definition of, compared to secular Christian or skeptical, bright, or whatever, because, it doesn't have that much of a negative connotation, that actually helps all of us out. That unites us more as patriots, as fighters for the Enlightenment. This is why I don't like this idea of calling yourself a secular Christian, because like Richard Dawkins, I know he does, but he doesn't say it in a way that people actually understand. So he's British, and the Anglican Church in the United Kingdom is so watered down. You have so many pious Christians, for instance, that don't even like the Anglican Church because they say it doesn't actually adhere to its original core tenets anymore. You have pastors and bishops in the Anglican Church that actually don't even believe. And they're just in it because they like the outfits and all. It's very similar to the monarchy. It's just a symbol. It's not even anything that holds any actual weight. And so Richard Dawkins has been calling himself that casually since 2007, when The God Delusion came out as a book. One of the most militant, passionate atheists in the world. He's the most famous atheist in the world, actually. And he despises Christianity. But in 2007, he called himself that. Fast forward to 2024 on some British radio appearance or whatever, he said it again. And what happened? The media outlets, the media, took that and said, see, even atheists have problems with atheism. He's converting to Christianity now. He has a problem with atheism. No, he's had the same 2007 militant atheist position. This is the one disagreement I have with Richard Dawkins. He used a term that the majority of people just don't understand. And what's happening? Now we are taking the blame for it. Oh, see, advocating for atheism, big mistake. Richard Dawkins and all the work and advocacy he did to save Western civilization. And by the way, he's fighting against wokeism a lot now. Oh, he's wrong. He's admitting he's wrong about religion. No. They just twisted it. And this is my problem. this is my issue. This is why I understand why some people want to say that they are secular Christians, even though they're atheists and don't believe in God and whatever, but it hurts us more than helps us.
I would
And I
agree
really
with
do.
I would agree with you if I was I would agree with you if I was talking about it in the same way that Dawkins was, where it's it's kind of a shortcut to not have to really contend with atheism versus Christianity, and it's just a label you slap on yourself. I think I do think that, you know, in the meantime, while there are people who do have a bigger platform like yourself or like Colin, who are able to do things and have other people be like, oh, look, I'm not at that level yet. And so I think that again, if it's clear that I'm using it as you know, I don't want to say debate tech, but a rhetorical tool to expose the fact that you're covering or you're leaning on your faith rather than the rationality of the argument in this moment. I don't know that people would necessarily be like, oh, Lutch, he's not really the Indian Jesus. He's not really an atheist. He's a secular Christian. I think that if I were to do it like Dawkins, I would completely agree with you. I see a very big difference in using it almost as culture jamming. Well, you know, we're all in this group, so you can't tell me I'm wrong because I'm a Christian. Meanwhile, you know, don't go to church on Sunday. You don't follow the Bible. You got all these tattoos. You this, that. And I think in a short term where there is, you know, ground to be gained, I do think that, you know, it's too easy for people to shut down those conversations. And I think I would not suggest myself or anybody else to slap that label on and throw away atheist. I absolutely agree with that 100%. I am an atheist, proudly so. Proudly so. However, if you are going to use semantic tactics to shut me down, I think it's fair to come up with semantic tactics to combat those semantic tactics.
So here's where I would agree, and I think I would agree in only one circumstance. And this is what we've been saying as organized atheists for decades. If you can't come out of the closet as an atheist, let's say you're a minor living with your family, or you are in a specific profession, there's this existing project that Richard Dawkins has been a part of called the Clergy Project through his foundation, where you spent so many years in the pews, and your financial livelihood, your life is
I talk
reliant
about this
on
all
that.
the time.
You know,
What is
and
it,
the
the
Clergy
Clergy
Project
Project?
gradually works with
Yes.
you to economically, you know, become independent and do all that, and you have to for a temporary time still call yourself whatever. That I understand. Or you're in fear for your life. Like, let's say you are a Muslim, and you're living in an Islamic country, and you cannot be out. I understand. But for people like you and for people like me, I don't think there's any excuse to say that you're a cultural Christian, secular Christian. Just use the word that people understand, or else people are going to conflate it. Only 50%. Like, let's talk about the word secular. In secular Christian, most Americans, only 50% of Americans know what the word secular means. Meanwhile, 90% of Americans know what atheist means. So it's just poor communication. And then not only that, you know, you said that a good chunk of your audience, or a little more than half of your audience, is religious. You know, look at that. Put out 78% of your religious and non-religious audience, you know, came to agreement. So this also comes to the respect that we should have for our religious friends and our Christian friends and our Christian colleagues, in that they're adults. They're adults, human beings. Christians are able to take criticism just like atheists are able to take criticism. And then look at polls that have also recently come out. You know, 2 decades ago, less than 50% of Americans would vote for an atheist for president. Now the numbers are way, way more than half, more than Muslims.
Oh, really? I haven't looked at
You know,
the last time I looked at that was like the bottom of the list, like right above a pedo or something. That's
so
good
the
to
more
hear.
of us that speak out, it's better. So this is why I really do say, like, as long as your financial livelihood or your life is at stake, call yourself the term that most people understand, and you'll be doing yourself and you'll be doing those around you and your fellow atheists and freethinkers a massive favor.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think, you know, I mean, if I find myself backed into a corner when I have a good point, I'm not promising that I won't bring out the secular Christian thing. But again,
Bring up how you agree with them on all these other issues. Talk about all these other things.
But you
Talk about
definitely
how
Yeah, you definitely make a good point, and just one more big question for you before I get to that though. There's a video that I did a couple weeks ago about like the generational divides and how Gen Z sees Gen X and all that, and it just blew up. Biggest video I've ever done. It was just kind of like a throwaway thing. Biggest video I've ever done. And there was one comment that kind of encapsulated a lot of the other comments, but it was very short and sweet. And so I told a short story about, I don't have a great home life. I have an older brother, younger sister. My older brother went off to college and then never turned around. And I was kind of like, yo, like, you just gonna leave me here? And then when I went to college, I went to my little sister. I was like, hey, I'm always gonna be here for you. And Gen X seemed to see that, oh, well, it's not my problem. It's not my responsibility. Like, yeah, I know that. I did that anyway. And so the disconnect isn't necessarily in the messaging itself. I think it's in particular words. And I definitely appeal to what I call semantic obfuscation. I'm sure we must have talked about that at Dissident Dialogue, just moving around the words and then the linguistic creep of people using words incorrectly. But so the last thing I want to ask you about, really, and I wish we had forever and a day, but of course Thomas is a busy guy. So actually, you know what? I'm going to drop the link for you guys. I'm sure you will have some shit to yell at me about. So I'll drop the link. And come on up and yell at me once. I'll pin that up. Boom. So I think the biggest disconnect between the conservative movement and the being an atheist is the question of religious people. Where do you get your morality? And I think that's just again a cultural thing. You brought up how in the UK it's a different context because they have like the Church of England and it's just kind of there. I would love that here where nobody cared about religion, but so I did at the beginning have this this naive feeling that, like, guys, if we just show everybody what's the truth, then everybody will act perfectly. Yeah, that doesn't really work. And so I've elevated my message to be, or my goal rather, to be to create that that American secular moral structure, that prepackaged. Like, okay, maybe people like yourself, people like me, people like that we know are going to leave the church and spend time in moral philosophy or doing this and that and figured out how to act like a normal person. But as Ian and other people are correctly pointing out, there's way too many people who lose religion and then just go off into degeneracy. And so I think that comes down to, if we can actually say, no, this is the, I call it the American identity. It's work in progress. But if we can have, this is the American identity. We believe in grace. We believe in family. We believe in tradition. We believe in ritual. We believe in merit. We believe in capitalism, whatever it is. And that can be pushed as a thing that people understand. Do you think that is a reasonable goal, or do you think there are steps that need to be done before that's a reasonable goal?
I think both. I think it's a reasonable goal that we should continue to state, but it's not going to be done overnight. One thing I will say, and I know it's not popular to say, right? In American culture, we like this idea of, oh, screw, especially in modern day populist culture, right? The elites, screw the elites. We have to all be men of the common man, men of the people. People forget that the United States was founded by thinkers, a minority at the time, who were very literate, who didn't acquiesce to mob rule.
Right.
I am understanding that there are some Americans out there who are understandably needing to worry about putting food on the table for their families, who don't have enough time to open Richard Dawkins or Steven Pinker or Yasmin Mohammed or Heather McDonald, and they have to worry about caring for those around them. Maybe some people that have diseases or illnesses. Not everyone is going to be a stoic philosopher or a reader of objectivism or existentialism or the God delusion or things like that. But does that make the truth any less true? That's the problem. We've always operated as a society, as thinkers of a society, as people who consume content such as yours, as we are still going to fight for the truth. We are still going to try to discover what is true, even if there are mobs of people out there that don't agree with us. And it might sound too elitist to admit that, but we've always been like that. I think if we could do what we can to make sure the doors are available for common Americans to get involved in philosophical conversations and dialogues. That's important. That's what I like about the anti-elitism movement that's kind of popping up in the country. But we have to also acquiesce and understand that if 99% of people say, we're going to jump off a cliff because I can't fathom the idea of staying on this cliff any longer, are you and the 1% going to, jump off that cliff because, oh, well, 99% of everybody else is doing so, therefore I need to do so? No, you're going to use your head. And you're going to realize, I'm not going to jump off that cliff because it's going to lead to my death. That is the same thing. Not everybody is going to become an atheist. I'm not trying to force atheism at gunpoint to anybody. I'm not a fan of the communist leaders, the state atheists. We're trying to get rid of religious freedom. I'm an American, and I care about religious freedom and the First Amendment more than everything else, but I also care about the truth too. And we might come off sometimes as insensitive. We might come off sometimes as rude, and we can always try to tweak and modify our messaging to be as inclusive and as professional as possible. But we're not going to win anybody over. There are some people that are just not going to be willing to have those philosophical or high-level conversations with us. And we might come off as bad people for admitting that, but let's admit it anyway so we can just get it out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
And still keep fighting.
Oh, some people are shout out to George Carlin. Think about how dumb half the population is and realize that half the population is even dumber than that. So yeah, that is
watch Bill Maher, and see what he might come off as pretentious sometimes, some people say, but is he wrong when it comes to a lot of these topics? No.
I mean, I have a great dislike for Bill Maher in the way that he doesn't know a lot. Okay. But like he said, it's like, oh, well, you have to agree with me, okay? But I mean, I've seen Religious, that's like a yearly repeat, and great movie. Well, I mean, this was this was an amazing conversation. I really hope we can do this again. I know you gotta dip out, but any parting words for the atheist or the religious in the audience?
Yeah, so guys, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Hopefully you were entertained and informed from bits of what I am saying here. I run an organization called Atheists For Liberty. 501c3 nonprofit, atheistsforliberty.org. That's atheistsforliberty.org. You can follow us on social media on most major platforms and even some minor platforms. If you type in Atheist Liberty, that's our handle on most of them, or just type Atheists For Liberty, you will find us. And you can follow me at Sheedy Tom. That's at SHEEDYTHOM. Join us, become a member, subscribe to our social media, get involved in the movement. We need more volunteers. We need more people to help us save civilization one day at a time. And also, of course, subscribe to the Indian Jesus channel.
There you go.
I like this guy a lot. I'm glad I met you, man. And I'm looking forward to watching regularly.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so very, very much. I really do appreciate you taking the time. And again, I'm looking forward to doing more work with you guys. And like I said, when I didn't know what I was like, the Dissident Dialogues was the first real thing. I went to like a TwitchCon or something that was like not really anything, and I went with my dad, and we just got like general admission, and I was like, okay, I kind of see what's going on. So Dissident Dialogues was the first time I was like, okay, I see how this works. If you want to do it, then you gotta VIP and all that stuff, and to meet you guys and to meet you, to meet Cherry, to meet some of the other people there, and of course, our boy Alex O'Connor. That was it. I don't know if I told you, but he was walking in right as I was going upstairs for the first time, and I just wasn't paying attention. I was looking at my phone. I looked up, and he was there. I never get starstruck, but I was like, you're you.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a weird moment, but I'm glad I got the opportunity to clear that up. But thank you again, really, for hanging out. And again, guys, Atheists For Liberty. I put the link in the chat. It's only $12 a year, and I signed up as soon as I heard about it. Again, give a big shout out to Nick Lucchetti for talking about Atheists For Liberty for maybe, I don't know, a year before I actually met Thomas. So thank you again so very much. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, shout out to Nick. So I'm sure we'll be doing this again. But again, I can't thank you enough for your time.
Oh, yeah.
Take care, brother. Really
Thanks for having me. I'm
appreciate
looking forward to coming on in the future, man.
it. All right. Take care. Take care. Awesome. 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 Don't text. Yeah, come on up. I dropped the. It's up there, and we could. Yeah, that's a great idea. We'll do a little bit of a recap and see what is Atheists for Liberty. I got the page open here. And just general questions. I think Guamtech for you. What does it say here? The atheists have just as much merit as the spiritual. Bingo. It's a shame most people can't find a way to incorporate both philosophies to find a moral balance. Yeah, you get it. You get it. So looking at yeah, Bill Maher is definitely a pseudo intellectual. He can be right about things, but like that's only because somebody else wrote it for him. And it's like you get the credit for speaking it on HBO, I guess. But that's it. That's it. So let's see. Again, we'll see if Guamtech is setting up or whatever. But I do want to check out the website here. This is the atheistforliberty.org. I got the whole thing, and so I think, and again, this is important to me. This is important to me because this is how again, these are my people that you know, all of us have a lot in common, but there's a big gap there where, you know, where we don't think the same thing, and that's okay. We still have respect for each other. We still like each other, but the fact is that it's a little different. So, you know, all this stuff. But oh, look who we got, our boy Guante, the big old butthead. Welcome to the party. Thank you for hanging out, Melted Mind. You have a good one. What's going on, brother?
Not much, dude. Long ass day, but I finally made it. So yeah, I caught the very last end of what you guys were talking about and whatnot. It was basically just like his plug and everything for his channel and his website. But I've heard you talk a lot of good things about him. So
yeah. So have you heard of Atheists for Liberty before?
I definitely have. I just honestly, yeah, I've definitely be lying if I knew, or if I said I knew a crap ton about him, but
yeah, fuck Bill Maher. Fuck Maher. Comes on as an academic but fails miserably. He's smug, okay, and he's got that terrible camera angle.
Nothing worse than a you know, wannabe academic who can't get down with like the normal people's plights.
Yeah. I completely agree. So I wanted to do this anyway. So this will be a good way to kind of get our replay. If you're just joining us, you did just miss Thomas Sheedy, the president of Atheists for Liberty. Definitely check out the replay. But I want to, you know, kind of get you know, some immediate feedback. But so this is their missions and values. So Atheists for Liberty is an educational, nonprofit organization dedicated to defending the fundamental freedoms that support the human quest for knowledge and the separation of religion and government. How will we do that? Atheists for Liberty will safeguard the future of America's largest growing demographic through educational programs, advocacy resources, and mobilizing communities of grassroots activists and thinkers. Our vision, an America where the non-religious are common, embraced, and celebrated universally. So what are our values? Normalize atheism. This is why this came up a lot. It's one of the largest growing demographics in the nation. Where's my fucking babe? Where's my goddamn babe? Okay, sorry. All right. As one of the largest growing demographics in the nation, we seek to raise awareness about atheism by providing educational resources. We defend atheists through our advocacy and provide communities for liberty-minded individuals, that's us, to preserve free thinking. The Enlightenment values. Now, if you guys remember, when I called into Timcast and I brought the whole American identity thing to Tim, and he's like, "Oh, you need a mission." I mean, number one, looks like a mission to me, and number two, the idea that Phil Abonte was like, well, you know, maybe if you're talking less about Christian values and more about Enlightenment values, because that's really what they are. And well, remind me about about Phil Glomtech when I come back to the secular Christian thing. So preserving free thinking. Yeah, the Enlightenment values that modern nations are founded upon foster free speech and free thought as fundamental building blocks for civilized society. The ability to exchange and critique ideas without retribution or unreasonable social repercussions needs to be defended and preserved. They also want to safeguard secularism. The separation of church and state has been ingrained in our Constitution. Religious freedom in a secular country prohibits the government from endorsing, progressing, or promoting religion. And then finally here, they say advance individual liberty. I think we can all get on that. Americans should not have to live with the oppressive restrictions on their free choice and way of life. When tyranny is advanced in the name of divinity or social justice, that covers both sides, right? That covers the both sides that I do. Like whether you believe in a man in the sky or you believe a man can transform into a female. Again, we're saying the same things here. So either way, whether it's divinity or social justice, we need to uphold the values instilled by our founding fathers that empower us to question the validity of theocracy or the dominant culture, aka the wokies. So just off of that, what's your take just off of reading that and what you're
Definitely, I would say 70% of it, 75, maybe 80% of it, I can definitely agree with. The other ones, it's not so much that I don't agree with them, it's more so I just had questions about it.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically like the normalization of atheism, I guess. What does that entail really? Is that helping people understand the merits of atheism? Is it helping them understand like kind of like where they're coming from, or is it just like get out there and bash religion?
No, absolutely not. So the word that Thomas used was neutral. That it shouldn't be that if somebody is found out to be an atheist, that shouldn't be automatically good or automatically bad, especially in a political context. I mean, again, I come from this from a much more political standpoint than Thomas does. He's very much about the philosophy of religiosity versus secularism. And I do that's where we have a bit of a disagreement on the use of this secular Christian thing. And so I called you out, I'd be like, yo, my boy Guantek, I was getting triggered as hell. And he's like, bro, just chill. You're right. And everything's going to fall in place, but you gotta, you gotta wait. And so even before I brought that up, I was talking about the fact that, you can very easily get shut down, even if you have good ideas, just because you don't believe in God. And kudos to him. He was like, look, if I have to be the bad guy for the next 10 years or whatever, and I mean, I did not know he was only, what did he say, 24, 21, 26, 20, something like that. I assumed he was my age, but I'm also tiny, so whatever. I assume anybody who's taller than me is older than me, and I guess I'm past the age where that should be a thing, but anyway. So yeah, Ian, he is probably about 6 feet tall, if I had to guess, just based on, but that's not relevant. I'm not going to pull that up. His Twitter is in the description. Go ask him whatever the hell you want. So yeah, he doesn't like this idea of me. So I mean, I had brought it up in a Twitter space last week, and I didn't really have the time to explain it fully. And I think maybe he has a little bit heavier of an idea than I'm proposing. So you're familiar. Yes, unfortunately, you did miss Thomas. He was here for about an hour, but check out the replay, and thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate it, but yeah, check out the replay. I think we had quite an interesting conversation, and it will not be the last time he is here. But Guantek also missed it, so I'm kind of giving him a recap. If you want to stick around, we're kind of doing that whole thing. And so I was just saying, it's really quick. Mercy said, atheism is normalized, in my opinion. I'm going to strongly disagree. Has been for a long time. Perhaps that's the humanities department and me speaking, though. Yes. In the humanities, yeah. Like if you go to if you go to the Reason rally, then yes, that's going to be normalized. But in normal culture, even on the left, or no, should I say that? Not even on the, I mean, in the right, even though there is such a strong connection between atheism and leftism, the idea that, again, just normalizing it, that it doesn't mean, oh, you're a leftist. Then that's what he means by normalize. That it's just a way of thinking, and it doesn't mean that you have bad thoughts or good thoughts. It's just, it is what it is. Steve said, I saw you in a space with him. Was interesting. Wouldn't mind talking with you one day about atheism. I'm a member of Atheists For Liberty. Shout out, shout out. I got you. Yeah. So, if one of the, is there any? Let me drop the. We have a free Discord server. And feel free to come and join us and hang out. And yeah, we'll definitely put something together. So as I was saying, so you were you here when I originally talked about this secular Christian thing?
Like a while ago, or in this stream?
Okay. No, a while ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so just to quickly recap, in case anybody didn't hear this idea of us being a secular Christian. Now, this is in the face of people like Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who was, escaped Islamism and was a part of the new atheism movement. Now calling herself a Christian. You have Russell Brand, who's now a Christian. You had Nala Ray, the OF girl. That's not, and it's just a trend. And so, in my mind, that's like, how come you guys are all accepting of, this whore and, this loser and this, but I have ideas that are more in line with you, but just because I'm an atheist, it knocks my ideas down by 10 points or whatever. Harley said Thomas sounded like he didn't know anything he was talking about. Wow. I'm going to disagree, but fair enough. And so I was in a situation where the conversation was, it was just kind of a showstopper to be like, well, you're an atheist, so you don't have a moral structure like a background that like a Christian would. And so I came with this idea of again, not to label myself out to the world as a secular Christian. I am proudly an atheist, but and so this is kind of what Thomas was saying, that secular Christian seems to be a misstep by atheists to fight Islam or other beliefs. I agree. Thomas is extremely knowledgeable. And so this is essentially what he was saying, but he was comparing it to Richard Dawkins, just being the cultural Christian. And so the difference between what I was saying is that I'm very clearly and openly an atheist. I'm an atheist. But if we find ourselves in a political conversation and you think you can shut down my morality or my point in whatever way just by pointing out that I am an atheist, then this is now a rhetorical tool to undercut that, so that we can get back to actually talking about the conversation. So, what Steve is saying, again, is similar to what Thomas is saying, is that kind of can go backward, go backwards for the atheist community. And I don't disagree. But I think before, I'm at a place where I can, he was bringing up Colin Wright and saying, well, look at him. He just got a bunch of fire for, tweeting something about being an atheist, and atheists are so in favor of trans stuff or whatever it is. And the all of the people on the right were, well, of course, without God, and the idea here is different than that. It's like, no, again, I'm an atheist, but if you're going to use that tool to say, oh, well, atheists have no moral structure, it's like, actually I do, you just don't understand it. Then I can demonstrate that moral structure. And then we can get back to, are you really a Christian? No, I'm not a fucking Christian. I don't believe that Jesus was divine or anything, but it's a rhetorical tool. So I just want to clarify that.
Right. I mean, I definitely see like the point of being able to have that conversation, because it really does just kind of throw some of just the religiosity of it out the window, so that you can have a real conversation.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes.
And the fact is that it's unfortunate that so many people rely on their religion to have any kind of standing in the world, whether that be through philosophy, or whether that be through just a regular everyday conversation with people. And I do think that the main part of the religious conservatives out there, I honestly think they're kind of a dying breed. They are kind of having a little bit of a resurgence and that kind of thing with whatever's going on right now. But I would say that the religious conservatives are not like the religious conservatives of the past, like the 90s and early 2000s. The ones who wanted to freaking, get rid of music out there and comic books and pop culture in general. Like they wouldn't have any room for that whatsoever. And I think that, and this is why I brought up what I brought up to you, as far as like, you are right. And I truly believe that it's the religious people who are going to have to start making the concessions. They're the ones that are going to have to start opening themselves up if they want to win. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So do you want to keep this moral structure in society today? Because if you do, you're going to have to bring the people on who live by that moral structure, but just don't use the one word that you think is so important in it, which is God.
Yeah. And I think that so yeah, and Steve's saying here about Colin that he's not necessarily in into the deep philosophical aspects of it, which you don't need to be. Steve, yeah, hit the link, come on up. No, yeah, yeah, come on up. Seems like you got a unique perspective here. But that's the other thing, is that it needs people like and I am not putting myself above Colin. That's not what I'm doing, but I'm saying somebody who, if he's not into the actual philosophy or etymology of these thoughts, then the people who are need to be able to surgically get in there and get the again. I personally feel like the message of liberty and all that stuff is more under threat from leftism, which is very closely tied to atheism, unfortunately, not by causation, but by correlation, but it is. I think that leftism is a bigger threat to our way of life in the short term than religiosity. And I think religiosity is eventually, like Harley said, eventually, I'm not worried about fighting Christians. Eventually, it's going to be the atheists versus the Islamists. And guess what? We going to win. Christians, you are not even going to be part of the conversation. But that, between what you've told me about, you're like, hey, man, like, they're going to be the ones that are making the concessions. And then, kind of finding that there are more people who are willing to stand behind this position, not an ideology, but a position of, yes, I am an atheist. I do feel more comfortable, and I would never want to get big being the secular Christian. I think that I don't know if that's fully understood. And so I'm gonna hang on to that for a while, and I'm gonna hammer that, because I need to hear why exactly. If I'm only using it in particular instances, why is it a bad idea? So let's welcome our boy, Stephen McRae. Welcome. Another AFL member. How are you doing today?
No, he's
Watch that guy. There we go. Pick off the video there. If not, I get the playback. Nice to meet you guys. I heard you the other day, Indian Jesus, and talking with Colin and Thomas Sheedy in the Twitter space. Mm-hmm. That was you, right?
Yep, that was me.
Yeah. So in regards to Colin's tweet, because what set this off about objective morality, right? It was relating to atheism, and atheism has any onus to try to explain morality? And in regards to strict atheism, no, because atheism as a philosophy stance is the belief that there is no God. However, there are things that it entails. Beliefs don't exist in a vacuum. So I think it was appropriate for there to be some pushback to Colin to say that, look, if you're going to be discussing atheism and morality, let's actually talk about that, right? Let's actually talk about, can atheists formulate a coherent moral framework? And of course, most atheist philosophers do tend to moral realism, statistically speaking.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then what is it that they know that the average atheist may not know, or someone like Colin who hasn't really dived very heavily into moral theory? That makes sense?
I think I'm following you. So are you saying that there's clearly something, without having to dive into the philosophy, that is natural, that even someone like Colin, who hasn't dove into the philosophy, he's more into biology, he still has that. Is that what you're saying, or am I
Yes, I think
off
so.
base?
Especially because, I mean, if I remember correctly, his specialty is actually evolutionary biology, right? Isn't it?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure it is. And of course, you know, moral theory can be argued through evolutionary means. There are many papers out there that talks about how we as communal species have to rely on each other to some degree, have some kind of moral contractualism to what we owe each other to formulate a moral theory. And so there is an overlap. And as I said, these beliefs don't exist in a vacuum. So just because somebody's an atheist doesn't absolve them from trying to explain things, because that's what Christians do, right? A Christian will say, hey, look, I have a deity, and that deity is giving me the foundation for my morality, which, of course, as you're an atheist, I'm a non-believer, agnostic. You know, we don't subscribe to that, right? We don't believe that actually is the case. And in many ways, it makes morality even more difficult. I think that divine command theory as an action-based theory is ethical subjectivism and not an objective moral framework. But that's something that could be argued with a theist that argues such a thing. So I think there is overlap with biology. And I think that Colin kind of maybe overstepped a little bit. And I hate to say it, I like Colin's amazing. That man he has done so much. But yeah, I like philosophy and I like moral theory.
I'm looking for the specific tweet that started, you know, a whole. So we have, all right, let's see what we got here. We got this one here. I think this was in response to something, but he had posted something about, you know, oh, it sucks to be an atheist sometimes because, you know, so many atheists are in favor of this thing, that thing, or whatever. So this was like seeing a lot of comments similar to, quote, atheism doesn't work, in response to the recent poll about support for child transition procedures by various religious outlooks. That answer confuses me somewhat because atheism was never meant to be a moral system. It isn't supposed to, quote, work, whatever that means, because it doesn't aim to solve anything. It's just the lack of belief in a god or gods, which again is another thing that I think you know, is a step in favor of people using the word atheism. That it's not, I believe there is no God. It's just I don't affirmatively believe in any god or gods.
And I would love one day, let's set up a completely different hang up. My whole shtick for 10 years has been explaining atheism in the atheological point of view, that in philosophy, it is the claim there is no God. It is the belief there is no God. And I do see a lot of atheists try to use it in the negative sense, as in lack of belief, which actually came from a man named Antony Flew in 1972. He wrote a paper called The Presumption of Atheism. I have a paper that refutes that paper. It's a very well-known paper nowadays. It's a lot of atheists have read it. And so I actually argue that Flew was incorrect for making that request to use atheism as merely to be a lack of belief. Now, Collins, when he says that in the tweet, and I did message him on that, or I did retweeted and said something, he's stating a fact, right? He's stating something as atheism is the belief that there is no God, which is, atheism is a lack of belief there's a God. Right. And that is true. But that is not the standard understanding of atheism in academia. And he's an academic.
Sure, but if he's got the right definition, then shouldn't he be doing exactly this and saying, yes, you technically it isn't supposed to work. It's just the lack of beliefs in a god or gods.
But it's not just that's the word is what I would call like a weasel word, right? It's not just because in academia, atheism is the belief that there is no God. That implies there is a lack of belief. Right, because if you believe something, you lack the negation.
Right. I believe. But so as an atheist, I don't believe that there is any God, but I am open to the fact that a God could exist.
Right.
So does that make me not an atheist?
God? In philosophy, no, it wouldn't be sufficient.
Why?
If you read Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, if you read Dr. Schellenberg and a few other very well-known professors that actually teach this subject, they say that the sufficiency condition for atheism is to hold the belief, not merely lacking belief. Lacking belief is necessary, but insufficient in philosophy to be considered to be atheist, as generally understood. That's not the only usage, but in standard practice, if you read a paper on atheism and you see the word atheist, almost every single time the author is conveying to the person that is the belief that there is no God.
So what word would you use for me?
I would have to question you and really kind of dive into your ontology and your epistemology, and that could probably be beyond the scope of your show right now. By the way, first time listener, Indian Jesus, first time.
Hey, shout out and welcome to the party.
Oh, you got your own cup too?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's just a sticker, but
I got one too.
Totally
I got my own mug for my show too.
There you go. There you go.
So I would have to. I mean, simple questions though. It's basically is like, are you convinced that there's no such ontological being that is generally understood to be a deity? And just make it simple. Some necessary being or agent that has intentional states that created the universe. Simple as that.
Are you asking me? Do I believe in that?
No. Do I believe that? I'm asking you. Do you believe that no such being like that exists? Are you convinced there's no God?
No, I'm not convinced there's no God.
Are you convinced there's no fairies or leprechauns or Santa Claus? Are you convinced of that?
I mean, not anymore. I mean, any more than the God. I mean, if there was a leper, I would totally accept that. If I saw a leprechaun, then I'd be like, oh shit, maybe leprechauns exist. I would certainly test it and be like, I might be hallucinating. But that's the exact same thing with God. The only difference is that I don't see anything that would ever get me to the position. So this is this. Harley, I'm going to come back to this. But this is the sticking point, is that even if I leave open the room for the idea that God may exist, I still don't believe that there is anything that could convince me of a God. I don't think there's anything that could convince me this is not a hallucination, this is not a delusion, this is in fact God.
No, I understand.
Change anything at all?
No, because it doesn't answer the question. And I'm not obfuscating. I'm not a contrarian. I'm really not. I literally love philosophy and I love atheology. So let's take the proposition to be something else, a mundane thing. We all agree, I think, that life on other planets is possible. I don't think anybody really argues it's impossible unless you're some fundamental Christian. I hold the belief that alien life probably it does exist somewhere. Some people say they hold the belief that there is no alien life. Some people abstain and they have no belief either way. So what I'm asking you when it comes to like the position of God, are you convinced that there is no God? Do you hold the belief that there are no aliens, there is no God? See what I'm saying? It's called an active belief. It's not merely suspending judgment. It's not merely saying, look, I have no position on the proposition of aliens existing, because if you suspend judgment that aliens exist, you are also suspending judgment that they don't exist, because it's called closed under negation. If you suspend on P, you suspend on not P. So when I'm asking you, are you convinced if there's a God exists? I'm asking you, have you suspended judgment such that you have no position either way? You don't believe there's a God. You don't believe there isn't a God. And it's called agnostic on P. Agnostic. That's literally what agnostic means in philosophy.
Sure, but I still think so. I have made the decision that I don't think that there is enough evidence for it to be reasonable to assume that there is a God.
Okay. Do you think there's enough evidence to reasonably assume that there isn't a God? Or to conclude? Yes. I think conclude is a better word, not assume.
So yes, I feel like I can conclude that. I can't prove that to anybody else. I can't show this is why. But I personally have concluded I don't think there is a God.
Outstanding. And see, that is atheism in philosophy. You would be under atheist. I mean, that would fall under the atheist label. You have concluded.
God. So what changed from when I started saying that I don't believe that there is a God and I don't know what could convince me, but I leave that open? What changes to be like, oh, okay, now you are an atheist? Is it just the fact that I'm willing to say I affirm that I don't think there is a God? Is literally
it's the position of the negator? Because I do not believe the negation is I do not believe the proposition, right? But if you change the negation from the predicate to the proposition is I believe there is no God. And so it's a huge difference, because you and I are both non-believers. Yeah, you're a non-believer, I'm a non-believer. We both don't accept there's a God. But the difference between my position and yours is you have concluded there is no God. I haven't concluded that, because my philosophy is very, very nuanced. And so I don't expect people to use the same justifications as I use, because I read all the academic literature I can on it. But my position is I suspend judgment. Yours is not. You can, if somebody says, "Hey, atheist Jesus," right? Is that what it's called? Indian Jesus.
Atheist Jesus works too.
There's somebody else named Atheist Jesus too, but Indian Jesus. But if I just say, "Hey, what's your position on this proposition?" You would say the proposition is false. It's simple as that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, I think
that doesn't mean. So it doesn't change the fact that because I say I think it's false, but I also could be very, very wrong.
Sure, but that's just what's called
Okay.
epistemic humility, right?
Cool.
Open-mindedness. Those are epistemic virtues, which is great. You have epistemic virtues. You're like me. Given enough evidence based upon, evidentialism, we have an obligation to revise our beliefs proportionally to the amount of evidence provided.
Fair enough. So Harley Rose has a great question here. That on the back of Colin's tweet saying it isn't supposed to work, whatever that means. She's now saying, so what's the point of Atheists for Liberty if atheism isn't meant to fix anything?
Well, I'm not going to speak for Atheists for Liberty, even though I was asked to be on the advisory panel, but I just didn't have the time. I rewrote their webpage, but they didn't.
All right, I'm a new. I don't know how long you've been a part of it. I'm a rather new member. I only met Thomas at the Dissident Dialogues. I've been in it, but. If I'm certainly you are not speaking for Thomas, but if somebody was just asking you as a member, how would you respond to this?
Sure, because I just had Thomas on my channel the other day as a guest too, and we discussed this very thing, and we go way back a few years. So I've been with Atheists for Liberty for a while, and I recommended him pretty much what he was wanting to do. Atheists for Liberty seems to be more setting things like separation of church and state. Mm-hmm. Right. Not allowing the encroachment of Christianity into secularism such that it negates or encroaches upon individual liberties. And I think that is one of the core things, as well as, and he wants to normalize atheism. Right. And I understand the terminology of why he says normalizing atheism. And you had mentioned when I first saw this, I saw this because Thomas put it on Facebook, that you don't agree that atheism is normalized yet. However, I think it almost pretty much is. I don't think it has a long ways to go. It's not like it was 50 years ago. If you said, hey, God doesn't exist, it's going to have a stigmatism to it. Is there in certain pockets of America where that exists? Sure. But I mean, there's places down south where they still, racist as hell. I mean, it's just that those little pockets are isolations from the overall average of America. I think that overall in America, nobody really cares if somebody's atheist. You're not going to go to a job interview and they say, hey, what's your belief on God? Right.
Yeah. And so then would go ahead, Glenn?
I was going to ask, as far as if it isn't meant to work, what exactly is that supposed to mean exactly? Atheism itself is not supposed to work, in the context of trying to change anything? Or
I think he's trying to distance biology from atheism, right? And
so,
I understand.
Steve, if I may, I think I understand his question, and I think you will have a good answer if we understand it. So what Colin is saying is that it isn't supposed to work in the sense that it's not an ideology that you're supposed to follow. And so if Colin doesn't necessarily have the specificity to articulate that atheism is a bedrock to build upon, it's not an ideology itself. I think that is that goes closer to where the idea that if it doesn't work, what's the point of Atheists for Liberty or a group like Atheists for Liberty?
I think it boils down to what people really mean by ideology. The word is laden with negative connotations, right? But also can have positive connotations. And Colin, since he put atheism is just a lack of belief, I don't think he's recognizing that you as an atheist who believes there's no God is more than just a lack of belief. You
right, but that doesn't speak. And maybe this is me calling. Yeah, maybe this is Colin and I falling into the same boat of misusing atheism in terms of the ideology that follows. But I don't feel like my morality is tied to. I think I'm an atheist, and then separate from the fact that I don't believe in a God or gods.
I agree.
I have morality over here. So it's not the atheism that works. It's the moral structure that I built for myself that works. That I don't like getting hurt, so I don't want to hurt other people. I want to feel good, so I want other people to feel good, so on and so forth. And so I think the question is, well, what I would answer to Harley here. What's the point of Atheists for Liberty? To show that you don't have to have a God in order to be a good person, and so you do need to have a moral structure. You do need to have a purpose. You do need to have all of those things that you can potentially get with Christianity. But again, the dichotomy of religion and purpose or no religion, no purpose is a false dichotomy.
So no, I have to agree with you.
Sorry,
Yeah, don't
I just wanted to bring up, this is exactly kind of why I always bring up the historical context of religion and God, to be able to have that underlying like structure that atheism can build off like, if there's going to be the historical context, we can understand that there is a reason for why people thought these things up. Maybe that reason wasn't exactly scientific, but it did have its like reasonings for existing, and it did have its workings that actually ended up helping people survive.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we go from the historical context and we use atheism to be able to answer the questions that those writings, teachings, any kind of religion wouldn't be able to answer, then we would be able to find that balance, I feel like, of what I brought up earlier, where we might be able to actually have all of the questions that can't be answered by religion to be answered by atheism, and we can still use both of them to understand that there's something here that we can all kind of follow. And if we can't, then just, I guess, get rid of it all.
Yeah,
So
there's
to-
forms of that though. Secular humanism would be an atheistic attempt to do that very thing,
Yeah,
right?
and so
and okay, sorry.
so when you go on, when you say that, it seems like the analog to that would be looking at Christianity as a whole and be like, well, grace doesn't work if you for your whole, like, no, nobody's saying that this one part is the whole thing. Atheism is the door that, at least the way that Colin and I are using it. So Steve, we definitely gonna have some longer conversations, but at least the way that Colin and I are using it is just the lack of belief in a God or gods. And have concluded that, then that is not the moral system. That Steve, you're saying before about ideology, and I think ideology has to have tenets. It has to have oughts. This is what you ought to do. This is what you ought not do. And atheism does not have any of those things. It is simply a position. The same way that if you if I ask you, do you want some coffee? Do you want some heroin? Whatever, good, bad, otherwise. But the position you take on that, whether you want coffee or not, is not going to answer what you think we should do about homelessness. Whether you want heroin or not is not going to tell us what you want to do about the economy. And atheism is the same way.
Yeah, I would word it this way, and I totally understand what you're saying, and I happen to agree, but I would word it atheism qua atheism, meaning just specifically relating to atheism as atheism has no relevance to morality.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
And I'm perfectly fine. No, but then again, when you're doing atheist activism, because my show the other day was on atheist activism with Thomas, and so when you're actually going out there and you're arguing with theists, morality is one of those subjects that come up, right? Mm-hmm. And even though in political sense it has really no relevance, in the YouTube world, in the social media world, and you're doing activism, morality is a big thing. And so I think that if you're talking about atheist activism, then morality is a subject to be discussed. If you're just talking about atheism qua atheism, then of course you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and then when you factor in how easily, again, this is a misunderstanding of the position of I lack a belief in God or gods, and then they tie that to like Mussolini, and that is that's the kind of thing that talking to Thomas helps me realize, okay, maybe there is more of a need for me not to capitulate to Christians just to be in the specific conversation, but and I still think that the secular Christian thing is something I'm gonna keep in my back pocket, but maybe not throw it out unless it's I'm being completely shut down. Oh, you're an atheist, you can't say anything. But other than that, to say no, atheism can provide an opportunity for you to not only just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you can't read the Bible. Just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you can't understand who Jesus is and what he did and what his message was and all of that stuff. It just means you can take in more.
But isn't that atheist activism, right? I mean, so again, that's when you're having a discussion with an actual theist about the subject, right? It really has no relevance in the political sense. Right. You don't need to understand moral theory to do politics very well.
Well, I disagree because
okay, yes, you need morality as far as politics and ethics. Correct.
Yeah,
but I'm talking about you don't need to really define your moral theory in any great capacity to be a politician. You have to have ethics, but you don't have to tell somebody whether you subscribe to non-cognitivism or emotivism. Right. It's irrelevant. That would be falling into the domain of moral theory.
Definitely.
And I would even say that is part of the reason why the founding fathers got things so damn right, was because they did build off of the basically some of their religions, maybe not all of them, but they built from a religious idea of their morals and then took the God side out of it and decided to go down a route of like what actually works to run a country.
Mhm.
So it really does seem like that's the balance that I think we're all trying to strike here, is to not be so religious that everything is just based off of a book or God, but to have that moral underpinning that actually moves us in a direction and gives us kind of the head start to know that this is what we're going to stick to, but we have to have reasons outside of the book and God to be able to justify it.
Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah, that's why I think theists are wrong when they say that we're predicated on a Christian nation. Granted that, they may have started with Christian values, but they stripped all the Christianity away from it. So really what it was foundational, based upon natural law, natural moral theory.
And not only that, it would actually kind of, it would make the religion look better if you can strip all of the God and everything out of it. If all of these things work so well, then we don't necessarily have to have the book or the God to tell us.
Yeah, but isn't that what atheist offers as an alternate? For example, like, not to get into evolution, but like Darwin on the Origin of Species. A lot of people don't recognize what his greatest achievement was not necessarily giving us relationships between various species or how they came about and biodiversification. But I would argue, and Colin would probably chastise me for this, but I would actually argue one of the greatest things he gave us was a teleonomic explanation for the apparency of design rather than a teleological explanation. He allowed people at the time to say, look, I can look at this, show that there is no, by necessity, that I have to have an intelligent agent, something with an intentionality to create all this. It can be created by nature alone. That was a huge thing that Darwin did. And a lot of people underestimate the power that had.
I completely agree. And that rolls us into a broad question from Harley Rose. And my instinct was to be like, well, of course, is religion anti-science? And if you said Christianity, is Christianity anti-science? I might have said yes. But religion in general, it gives me pause. So I'm going to throw it to you guys and take the easy way out. Contact, you have an answer?
I would say that no, religion isn't anti-science, because if it wasn't for religion, we wouldn't have a lot of the science that we do today, or at least, again, the underpinnings that led us to the science that we have today. I mean, maybe you could say that's because the church had enough money to actually fund all of the research and whatnot, or you could say that it was people trying to find the, I guess, deeper understandings in the natural world that they believe God gave to us. So no, I don't. And not only that, there's so many religious scientists out there, for just as many non-religious scientists. There's just as many religious ones. So, you would have to ask them, like, why the hell do you believe in a God if you're so scientific?
Yeah, I would argue that religion and even Christianity are not anti-science in this capacity. Stephen Jay Gould came up with something called non-overlapping magisteria, where the domain of science and the domain of religion don't have any overlap, and that science itself adheres to what's called methodological naturalism. And so it cannot posit a supernatural explanation for a natural observation. So you can have scientists out there that can posit something to say, look, this is a suspension of natural law. That doesn't violate science. There's nothing in science that says natural law cannot be violated. We have to assume that there are no violations. This is called uniformity of nature in science. And so what would be anti-science in religion would be something like young earth creationism. That's anti-science. Yeah. And even though I have a lot of friends in the Christian, the creationist community, I started on YouTube as a anti young earth creationist. That's kind of what I got known for. But then people came on board and were doing it much better than I was doing, and I left it into that. Right. So I left it for that. So, but yes, I think that when you promote things like the Earth is only 7,000 years, that is contrary to established science, and to be able to do so, you actually need to demonstrate to be taken seriously that your hypothesis is going to replace a confirmed scientific theory.
Yeah, I agree. I think that yes, I think specific aspects of religion can be it can be not in accordance with scientific reality, but when you ask it like this, where are we? Where to go? Where to go? But when you just ask it, but is it anti-science? I think religion is the precursor to science. What is science but our best ability to understand the nature of the universe? And before we have the scientific method to do that, religion was always the thing. So I don't think it's anti-science unless you are, like the instance we brought up, when we are able to clearly see, no, the world is this way, or at least we have very, 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 very strong reason to think the world is this way. But no, the Bible says 6 days, so 6 days. That would be anti-science. But other than that, there's just a lot that we don't know about the universe. And I think that's where the humility of atheism comes in. Instead of trying to say, well, okay, we don't know this happened, so we're going to call it a thing. To just stop it. We don't know what this is. All the time. I'll say God is very, very, very bad at being a word. Because the point of language is to take the ideas and thoughts in my mind and put them in your mind. And if when I say God, whether you believe or you're not, or not, what comes to mind when I say that is different for everybody.
Yeah, and as Guam pointed out, though, early Christians and things of that nature, they observed things, right? They saw things, right? And they wanted an explanation for it. Yeah. That's part of the scientific method. Matter of fact, and I get chastised for this, but this is science. The first step in any hypothesis is taking a guess. It is literally taking a guess.
Yep.
And then working on that guess, forming a testable hypothesis, and then concluding that your hypothesis is more likely than the what's called the null hypothesis in your experimental testing or inferential statistics. And so
I'm not making shit up when I tell you guys about this null hypothesis shit. I talk about it and they're like, whoa, what is that? No,
we'll have a talk on that, because I hear atheists say that atheism is a null hypothesis, and I cringe, because atheism has no relevance to inferential statistics. But
I like what Indie Film is saying here, saying the Big Bang Theory is a spiritual explanation for a natural event. And I mean, I don't disagree, but that also doesn't make it unscientific. And, right. and there's the overlap. You talk to high level engineers or physicists and high level mathematicians, and there's always a sense of awe and a sense of there's something bigger that we don't understand. And I do believe that it most likely there is something than just the material world. But I don't feel the need to say it's this, that, or the other. I can just say, I was at a concert and there was something in the air. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it just being that. It was just a feeling and it was amazing.
Spiritualism doesn't require religion. Spiritualism can be a feeling, an emotion. And if you look at a picture, an art, a majestic sunset or something like that, and it instills something in you that you have a feeling, that's a form of spiritualism. There's nothing wrong with that. That's emotional based. That's feelings. So when somebody says the Big Bang is a spiritual thing, then that just means you find it awe and wonder. And if you look at the Big Bang cosmology and you look at the theories, you go, wow, this is. I mean, anybody who ever looks at the underpinnings of Big Bang cosmology, inflationary theory, recombination period and reionization period, to somebody that came up with this to explain observations is elegant. It's genius.
It's beautiful.
And it works.
Yeah. And personally, again, as somebody who came from the Catholic Church, I find more beauty in the universe now without a God belief than I ever did.
Nothing wrong with that.
Thinking that a big man just went like that.
Yeah.
So,
and I would also like to ask, just because I am talking to two atheists.
I'm an agnostic, but not an atheist.
Okay,
but whatever.
Well, hey, there we go.
According to Steve, I am an atheist. I think
you're an. People used to call it the true atheist. We used to years and years ago. We're like, oh, you're a true atheist, but that was comedy. Okay.
Well, I would ask you guys: do you think that the main thing that atheists are really looking for is a solid, concrete answer to things before they can actually make a decision on anything? Because what you were just talking about, Steve, as far as like just a feeling, I would describe myself as being a religious person, well, maybe more spiritual, just because of a feeling. I don't have a book that I read. I don't go to a church, but I do feel that I am connected to something bigger. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not
Mhm.
having all of the answers to
Yes.
be able to have this feeling. So when somebody asks me something along the lines of like, well, why are you religious? Or, what, how
Stupid.
come you don't choose to be atheist if you don't know? I always find myself saying, because I'm okay with not knowing.
Yeah.
But
Well, let me ask you this.
would you say that atheists and maybe even agnostics are more on the, I guess you would call it more of a scientific side of it, where they have to have the answer in concrete terms?
No, and let me that changes the direction I was going to go here. But let me ask you this real quick, Rom. Okay, I think there's something called instinct, right? I mean, I think we have what's called intuition. It's a real thing.
Yep.
And so when you're walking down the street and you have this intuition you're being followed, if something in your subliminal mind that's processing in your subconscious that you're being followed or stalked, that's a preservation mechanism, right? And you should listen to it. You have justification for why you believe something, right? Or think something to be the case, which is emotional based. There's nothing wrong with intuition. So that could be a justification for a religion. Is it a strong justification? Probably not. But I mean, it's still a form of justification you can use holistically in other ways, but it's not irrational, right? You don't have an irrational position. If you said, hey, look, I believe, religion, I have a strong feeling, and so far I believe in God, it's a weak justification, but it would be far worse if you said, hey, look, Santa Claus told me God's true, therefore God's true, right? That would be a really irrational, I think, way to justify something. But as far as
it's still how most people operate.
Yeah, I get there's some implications there. But as far as like knowing something, I see that a lot of time with atheists, and it's a little bit cringe when they say, "Hey, look, I don't believe something until I know it." But knowledge is a subset of belief, right? And they conflate knowledge with information a little bit. But the issue with that is we don't really know a lot of things about about the world. What we know is beliefs, and that these beliefs are how we operate. And so. Yes. We can have scientific knowledge, right? When I say I know the Earth is, an oblate irregular spheroid, that's just a scientific knowledge.
Well,
right?
hold on, we're flat earthers over here. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah. Hey, awesome. Hey, Jaron, where's Jaronism? Let's get him on here. You know who he is. My best friend is the YouTube's best anti-flat earther on YouTube. Red
Eric Dubai?
Oh God. He's a straight up con man, right?
Yes. Well, the only reason I feel comfortable in being like, no, that's complete bullshit, is because I took the time to look at all that.
Right.
Yeah. So this is definitely a conversation that I would love to continue. So Steve, I would definitely suggest that you, if you're not already in the Discord server, join the Indian Jews Discord server. Yeah. And we will definitely set something up. Before we go, I want any last words for the people. Gomtech, you came up first, so I'll go to you first. Give you a minute to think about it. Vamping for a second. Last words for the people.
Basically just whatever you choose, man. Just be convicted in it, and don't hurt anybody else, and try to have more conversations so you can get some more understanding and hopefully add to your worldview.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right. Thank you so very much for joining us, brother. I very much appreciate it. I forgot to ask Thomas how much time he had before I started the show. And he's like, yeah, I got about an hour. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we'll make sense of something. And you definitely came in clutch as always. So thank you. I'm sure I will either see you in the after party or you have a good time with the family. All right, Steve McRae, thank you. I mean, for real, thank you so much for elevating this conversation. Like I said, I didn't check how much time Thomas had, and then I was kind of like, oh God, what do I do now? But
he's a busy man.
Busy man. Yeah, no shit to him at all. I was like, what do we do now? But you definitely helped out a lot. So I'm going to give you the floor. So tell the people, who are you? What do you do? Where can they find you? Anything you like, the floor is yours.
Sure. Let me take a minute just to wrap it up. My name's Steve McRae. I'm the host of the Non Sequitur Show. I was doing shows on all this stuff years ago, bringing PhDs on and discussing these topics, having debates with people against like Ken Hovind and that kind of stuff with Arn Ra and Matt Dillahunty and all that back in the day, way back when. But my hobbies are epistemology, philosophy, and atheology. And my whole goal is basically to explain to non-believers how to justify their positions, how to understand philosophy a little bit better, especially when it comes to atheism. And if you can find me on Twitter at Steve McRae _, I'm always around to talk to people about multitudes of subjects. I happen to like astrophysics a little bit. Not that I'm that knowledgeable about it, but it's just a subject I like. But yeah, find me over there. And I'm also on Reddit. And there you go. Just search my name. I'm easily found. But thank you very much for inviting me up. That was a pleasure, man. You have a lot to offer. I really am impressed.
Oh, thank you.
I love your hair because my hair was a little bit longer. So I'm jealous or envious. Because my hair was literally a little bit longer than yours, and I miss it.
Yeah,
but whatever, as you can see, I love it.
I'm hoping that it stays this way. I got the men in my family have good hair, but I'm just enjoying it while it lasts. Thank you so much.
I will see you on the Twitter spheres, and I'm usually involved in those spaces. I probably will have one later on as well. Nice. Thank you very much, man. I like this. I'm a subscriber.
Word up. I do appreciate that. And I did put the non sequitur link in the description. So definitely go check that out. All right. What are you guys saying here before we close this down? I think I missed this one. Mercy said, prophetically speaking, biblically, a day to the God of the Bible is a year to mortal. Prove it. How do you know that? How do you know that? So he said, try to understand God as something, not human. It's the only way to even begin to comprehend the infinite. I agree with that. Flat Earth on the back of a turtle. What is that? What is that? Isn't that like a meme thingy?
Video in a series I want to do about where certain myths came from. And that's tortoise from China. And it's something that developed independently in different places. We can find it in India, China, and Native American culture. The India and China versions, of course, might be connected, but certainly they would not be connected.
All right. Anyway, that's the real truth they're hiding from you. Y'all good. So, any films that I say the Big Bang is a spiritual explanation because it was. George French something or other, the Catholic priest, theoretical physicist, mathematician, astronomer that came up with the theory said God created it. That's why it's spiritual, not because it's an amazing feat of nature, because God did it. This is the frustration. It's like you're one step away. If you did a puzzle, what would be more spiritually fulfilling? If you bought a puzzle and put all the puzzle pieces together, or if you bought a puzzle and you just came home and it was magically put together. The second one, obviously. So the Big Bang is the second one, where it just happened to be that all the things were in the right order to create this vast universe that's so amazing that single-celled organisms could go all the way to people who now set up lights and cameras on their computers and talk to other people. That, to me, is why it's a spiritual explanation. Because of what it created. Not because somebody said God did it. But I mean, whatevs. What else we got here? So Mercy said, I was raised as a pantheist, and I figure if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Fair enough. I don't know what this means, but I am ready for the after party, guys. Big shout out to all of you. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it. We got a shout out my boy Zippy the Strange with the Rumble rant. Look at this motherfucker. He's like, damn, y'all were cheap as shit tonight. I'm just kidding. It's a joke. Jesus Christ. And of course, our sponsor, Melted Mind Media. Thank you so very, very, very much. I do appreciate every single second you guys spend here. You know that I know that you could be doing anything else in the world. So the fact that you are spending time here is special to me. And this one was big. I knew it wasn't going to be something, you know, I knew it wasn't going to be a huge video, but it's very important to me. So the fact that you guys spent the time here to, you know, just kind of understand where people like me are coming from, that means a lot. Hey, shout out to Dusk Carter. Said, for those that don't believe, no amount of proof is possible. For those that do, no amount of proof is necessary. Coming in late with the comment of the night. Dilly to that, and we'll call this the end. Shout out to Lord. Shout out for us saying spiritual explanations being the catalyst for the Big Bang is just one possible explanation. Indeed. And that is the humility of atheism, is that maybe not. Maybe. But shout out to all the members. Guys, remember, if you are a member of the channel, or like Dusk Carter, if you joined the server before the paywall, we are headed to the after party and you are invited. All you got to do, if you would like to join us, is scroll right below this. There is a join button. You hit that. It's only $2.99 a month. And even if you would just want to do like one day, just sign up and then delete it like you would with anything else. Either way, we are about to go to the after party. You don't have to worry about YouTube censorship, and you guys are not stuck behind your keyboard. You're actually on screen with me and everybody else. So thank you so very, very much for hanging out. Big thank you to Thomas Sheedy of Atheists For Liberty. If anything he said appealed to you at all, please at least go check it out. Atheistforliberty.org. Did I pin that? Is that what I pinned? I don't know where it is, but atheistforliberty.org. You can figure it out. Atheistforliberty.org. Again, thank you so very, very much. Until next time, guys, this has been Morty, and I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, we are out of here.